What's up, everybody? Welcome to episode 46 of Value Town. I'm ChanManV, and we got a special arena-centric Value Town episode planned for today. It's been a long time since we've done one, and I'm happy to have these three guests on today to discuss just everything about arena. First off, we've got one of the Value Town OGs, since he was one of the original hosts, Kripparrian. What's up, Krip?
Hey. Oh, geez. Oh, damn.
That's right.
The honor. It's all mine.
That's right. That's right. Second, we got a good friend and the most recent winner of Lord of the Arena, Hafu. And lastly, we've got a first-timer here on Value Town and one of the minds behind Hearth Arena, ADWCTA.
Thank you.
Took me a while to have to... You had to explain how to pronounce your name. So.
Did you just like stare into a mirror and
did.
try to pronounce it every way until it matched it?
I did.
Well, thank you. That was actually a really good pronunciation.
Yeah, all right. Well, I appreciate that. Well, anyways, we got a lot of good segments here. We're going to start off with some meta talk. Then we're going to go into some drafting strategy talk, card talk, and then we'll end the show with a co-op draft with the three of these guys, have them debate over cards. And we've got three of them, so majority will rule every time. So that'll be definitely nice. And then some Q&A at the very, very end. You guys can either post your questions on the ChanManV.tv ValueTown post, which I think some of the mods will probably link here in a second, or you can just tweet them at ChanManV, or no, twitter.com/ChanManV. And then we'll just try to read maybe 4 or 5 of them at the end of the show. Okay, so...
What? I don't know if majority is even going to be the best ruling, because I mostly go with like Hearth Arena stats as well. I think Hafu's going to get pretty screwed.
Oh, no.
Ooh. I haven't used Hearth Arena since...
Exactly.
It'll just tell you to pick every Kraken you see. It'll be the 5th Kraken, and Hearth Arena will say, yes, more Kraken.
Yeah.
Well,
so we'll maybe do a compromise system on that one.
Well, I mean, you can be the compromiser and
all right. Maybe
kind of be the tiebreaker. But okay, let's start off with some meta talk. So most of the Value Town episodes obviously have been constructed. So maybe some of the viewers right now aren't super familiar with arena meta. So let's start off by talking about pre-TGT meta and what classes were powerful, kind of the ranking. It's a real quick ranking. Krip, you want to start off?
Oh, yeah. So there was Mage, because there was basically like 2 type of decks. There was the go really aggressive and have unstoppable tempo. And then there was the deck that stops the tempo with board clears. And it was the easiest to do with Mage because you get the best board clear, which is Flame Strike, along with a few other board clears. The best was Mage because you could do both of those things. You could just play a tempo deck if you want, and if you don't get the tempo cards and get the flame strikes, then you make just that version of a deck. So it was just, without a doubt, the most consistent way to play the game in Arena. And then there were 7 other classes which were all about as good as each other, and then there was Warrior.
Oh, wow.
That about sums it up.
I thought Paladin was actually better than Mage last patch.
Oh, wow. Okay.
As well. I've always said, whenever people ask me on my stream, that Paladin's #1, because like Krip said, there are 2 ways, but also Paladin really stops the mages because they had Muster for Battle already, right? Which we can still admit is really broken, and it's pretty hard to remove. Like when you have Muster for Battle, you still have the Kings, the True Slivers, all that kind of crap that like is hard to remove, and then you give them sticky minions like Shield and Mini Bots. It just felt pretty dumb. It let you play around Flame Strike pretty well, so I don't know.
Yeah, Paladin seemed like the second best, but I mean, probably ADWCTA has the numbers on this, but it felt like most players who played Paladin just failed at trading a lot, so they just weren't making the use out of the class.
Maybe #1 class for overall win rate might be Mage, but I think the best kit was Paladin, and you guys can, like, in the hands of a good player, I think Paladin is stronger.
Yeah, in TGT, if you're talking about stats, for the GVG meta, Paladin was about the same as Mage, maybe even a little bit higher, depending on what time frame you're looking at. And in BRM, Mage got back on top. But when you start looking at Infinite player stats, Paladin actually drops, like, quite dramatically. Not as dramatically as Priest, and I don't mean, like, good players actually play worse with Paladin, but they play even better with Mage and even better with Rogue. So Paladin actually drops from like fighting for the top spot to a pretty significant distance between Rogue and Mage and BRM.
So what was the change in BRM that actually helped mages?
Everything kind of slowed down a little bit. Not as much as in TGT, but everything slows down a little bit, and then you have just more time to react to what the Paladin's doing. The Paladin's always strong with the board, but the more turns you get, the more turns you could try to flip it around on the Paladin.
Yeah,
And of course, dilution. Right? You have less shielded mini-bots, less muster for battles.
Right.
It felt like right after GVG came out, cards like Flame Strike weren't even that good in a lot of games. Like you'd Flame Strike and they'd have the same thing there.
Because of the death rattles, or
like death rattles, some minions would get stronger, and the big minions wouldn't even die anyway. It's just like the small and mid-range minions, the one that you would kill with Flame Strike, those would just like basically repop somehow.
In terms of, just with the power rankings, right? It's always been the same, I guess, few classes at the top. How much of that has to do with the hero powers of the classes? I mean, do they have anything like warrior and priest? Generally have more of a healing type of, kind of a control. They're generally control type of archetypes in constructed, right? In arena, it doesn't seem to have as much of an impact.
Yeah, you lose more, right?
Right,
Once
you definitely
you're behind, your hero power is just helping you lose even more.
Right, where with mage and rogue, and you have these more
Shaman.
interactive these things that interact with the board itself versus just doing damage to the hero. Is that a big influence as to how the classes do in arena?
It kind of is always lined up like that, right? Like Priest has a pretty bad hero power, Warrior has a pretty bad hero power. They've always been sort of at the bottom. Hunter has. Some people say they have a good hero power, but generally it doesn't affect the board. It has a lot of weaknesses. They're usually at the bottom too. And who's at the top, right? Mage, Paladin, great hero powers. Rogue, great hero powers in a tempo-focused arena. So I think there's definitely something there. Yeah, Druid, always very consistent with that hero power.
Yeah, I'm trying to lead into what would it take to really flip things around? Like, is it always going to be like basically these four, three classes?
It's super simple. It's super simple.
Okay.
You design cards for the warrior class, only for the warrior class, with overpowered inspire effects to compensate for the shitty hero power. And it doesn't matter for constructed, because you make them like tempo-driven cards. And constructed control warriors don't care about tempo. Tempo is a non-issue. So you can make cards that deliberately rebalance warrior for arena.
Yeah. And they did that somewhat. I don't know if they did it on purpose, but you look at Warlock, and it was a crappy class in Classic. It was a crappy class in... Wait, you thought it was good in Classic? I mean, sorry, Warlock. Did I say Warrior?
No, you said Warlock.
I said Warlock. You thought Warlock was good in Classic?
Yeah, that's all right.
It was good. What?
Really?
We saw the tempo warlocks. We just fled the flame imps and the
Oh,
blood
God.
imps.
I know.
Blood back then was broken.
exactly.
Blood imp.
Wow.
I know the worst matchup in the game was Warlock versus Druid. The Druid would win like 78% or something. And then like every time I'd play against Druid, I'd win. Like, I don't know, just roll them over. So, I don't know. I'm closer to Hafu on this one.
Yeah, maybe that's just me. But anyway, it was very bad in GVG at least. We do have the stats for GVG, and Warlock was really bad. And then BRN came along, and M-Gang Boss became a card. It became a common, and it was everywhere. And all of a sudden, you just see Warlocks, their win rates just start skyrocketing until they were like number 4. They just held down the number 4 slot very clearly. Number 5 wasn't even close. And that was one card. That was one card that pulled them up from like definite bottom 3 to number 4. So... one card, if it's a common and a class card, right, for the warrior, and it was a really good tempo card that you can play on turn 2 or turn 3, that could really make a huge difference.
Oh, also the 2-mana removal card for Warlock, Dark Bomb? Was that in the same patch? I think that helped a lot too, because you just gave them more cheap removal with their flooding, and then they can just keep tapping.
I kind of want to go back to the source of the question a little bit. I don't think it's so much that like classes have good hero powers, because if you look at the hero powers, like Mage is a lot worse than Druid. I mean Druid is a lot worse than Mage in terms of hero power.
Yeah. What?
Right, just do that. But they're still considered like about as good. It's really that Warrior and Priest are like monumentally bad.
Right.
Like Warrior literally does nothing. Like when you lose, it's not because you didn't hero power that 6th time. You lose because your opponent has 7 things on the board and you don't get Brawl when you play Warrior. That's why you lose. It's like a progressive thing. Priest, the reason it's so bad is because the Priest hero power is actually really good, but it's really good when you're winning in the late game. But to be winning in the late game, you have to be winning in the mid game and the early game. And to do that, you have to draft an excessive amount of early game creatures, which actually suck with your hero power.
Right.
So it's like so hard to get this balance for your hero power to actually be strong, rather than just on paper it looks strong. So
I agree, and also, like,
yeah.
sorry to cut you off,
Okay.
but like priest missing a 2-drop is so much more devastating than a mage or a druid or a paladin, right? Like doing nothing on the board, like passing until turn 3 is like just sad.
Healing at 30 health is literally nothing, right? So that's very true. When we had a little discussion at ADWCTA, right, the other day about, just the meta, right, with Arena and trying to stay ahead of the meta.
Just talking about the meta, yeah.
Yeah, just talking about the meta, no big deal. But you mentioned staying ahead of the meta. So, I mean, what does that mean, staying ahead of the meta? Just trying to play a specific class that you think is going to be on top of everything, or is there something more to it?
Yeah, the meta doesn't change all that often in the Arena. It changes whenever the new expansion comes out, and then. But the thing with the Arena is that it remains in flux. It kind of keeps moving for the first at least 2 weeks, maybe even a little bit after that. And you can definitely notice the meta changing even during that time. So I was just speaking about that period. So it's already ended now. I think the meta's pretty settled by this point. But during the time when it's changing, you can be a step ahead of the meta, right? When the Murloc Knight came out, that's the biggest example probably in TGT. It wrecked everybody. It was better than Muster for Battle by the stats. Anyone who saw it just lost. People were complaining about it everywhere. And then, so people looked at it as like the best card of all time that was ever created, better than Flame Strike, better than anything else. And we hadn't gone that far with moving, because we have a tier list, so we have to keep moving cards around as the meta changes, and we try to stay one step ahead of the meta. So instead of moving Murloc Knight to like 110, which is where the stats would say it is by the first 5 days, we moved it to like 80, because I knew that people were going to start playing around it. People were going to start saving that spot removal, saving that flame strike, just something to make sure they don't get totally screwed by the Murloc Knight that they just didn't know how to do in the first week because they've never been up against that situation before. And once that starts to happen, you don't have to have a Murloc Knight to get the benefit. You have the benefit as long as you play Paladin, because they're holding that back and it's hurting their tempo, and they're doing it because they think you might have a Murloc Knight. And all of a sudden, the numbers for Murloc Knight start going down and down and down, and now it's about an 80, which is where we put it. So that's what I mean by staying ahead of the meta. When everyone else is flailing around about Murloc Knight, if you catch on to that part where, well, now against Paladin, I always hold back a 4 damage removal if possible. You're going to be ahead of the meta. It's really just trying to like mentally get there before everyone else. They'll get there. The meta, people aren't going to stay around and get killed by Murloc Knights for the entire duration of TGT. But
I don't really agree with that, because the thing is, you can't always hold back 4 damage. Like, how often can you just like hold that in your hand and be like, this is for that card that he might have? And 2, it's like with the addition of Inspire, right? Like, the thing is, you're getting a hero power and something else, and if you don't deal with it right away, you're gonna lose unless you have like a giant board clear. So like Inspire on Paladin is so dumb because you put 3 things on the board, right? Like Coda Rider and Murloc Knight. Like those cards, when they don't get dealt with, just keep generating insane. For 2 mana, you're getting a 1/1 and something else, right? And you can repeatedly do that. Like if you just think about the snowball effect, it's so hard to cover.
I think the effect you guys are kind of missing. The effect, like the real counter to that, yeah, you can save back 4 damage if you're like comfortable in that way. I think really what ends up being the case is people more frequently commit more to the board against Paladin because of Murloc Knight. Like before he'd be like, okay, if he has Consecrate, I'm going to lose. But now it might be like, well, okay, I'll just play into Consecrate because then I lose to more cards like Murloc Knight. So it makes board clears more relevant, but board clears are already, like, I don't know how to say it, optimally relevant anyway. So it doesn't really change that aspect.
Maximally relevant.
Yeah, maximally relevant. I think the really interesting thing about like being ahead of the meta, I kind of talked about this a little bit. When TGT came out, I said that people think Paladin is the best. I don't know if it's the best. I thought it was about as good as Mage, but the really important thing was that people thought it was better than Mage. Like if Hearth Arena just like posts for fun, it's like, hey guys, we were totally wrong. Warrior is actually the best class in Arena. You will actually see like 1 to 4 games Warriors, and that changes the meta. The perception of what's good changes the meta because that's what you choose when you see the 3 classes. So what really changed in TGT was people's perception was immediately skewed towards Paladin being really good. So the classes that were good against Paladin, that was like being a little bit ahead of the meta. So people did really well with Rogue, and people who didn't really follow that actually still did really well with Mage. And right now, I think it's actually stabilizing, where you kind of see a pretty fair distribution of the 3 classes.
What's your top 3, each of you, right now, in order of first to third?
Paladin, Mage, Rogue, or Paladin, Rogue, Mage. Rogue, Mage are pretty similar. Depends on how well you can draft the Rogue, because they have so many cheap spells and cheap removal that it's hard. Like, it's board control, right? It's board control meta, and whoever gets the Inspire that wins you the game wins. That's what I think.
ADWCTA?
Start with Rogue number 1. I think that's by a fair margin because of kind of what Kripp says, which is it's just a really good matchup against Paladins, which is 25% of your matchups, and you see more and more of them the more you win. So, and then Mage and Paladin second.
Okay. I still feel Mage is number 1, just because you have so many more options when you draft. So I'm going to go with Mage. And then I'm going to say Paladin, then Rogue. And, Paladin, then Rogue, because I actually think Mage beats Rogue more often than Mage beats Paladin. So I think that the second and third place is dictated by the first place.
Okay, but if you could just purely think about the kit on its own without thinking about what the arena meta is, what would you rank? Like, just the cards. Let's just say,
Paladin. Paladin is the best cards, but it's easier to counter.
Okay.
You mentioned.
Okay, that's more of what I'm going for than the. So I agree with what you guys are saying about what counters what on the ladder, because you do run into mostly Paladins. So getting those favorable matchups is better, but I do think Paladin, just the kit, is insane.
You mentioned having more choices picking Mage, Kripp. What do you mean by that?
Oh, that's what I said. Like you can draft
anything you want.
Easily draft a control. You can easily draft a mid range if you get like water elementals, and you can easily draft tempo or aggro. Just like 10 cards in, if you make the design of the deck in a correct decision, you just have a good deck like so frequently. It feels like you almost always are playing a pretty good deck when you play Mage, and that's not true for the other classes, at least for me.
How much success have you guys had actually drafting into like that old school aggro Mage where you have like mana worms or things, you have the small removals, you have the large removals, and then you end with a couple fireballs? Because I found it pretty difficult to draft that actually in TGT.
I don't think I've seen Flame Strike since TGT came out, so that's basically all I've drafted.
Well, lucky.
Wait, really?
You?
Yeah, lucky you.
Is that lucky? Okay.
That's pretty lucky.
Well, if you're facing a Mage, that's really good.
Well, okay, that's true. Yeah. Okay.
Huh.
Well, let's move on to some drafting. I guess the drafting segment here. So it sounds kind of like you guys are in this, just kind of in line with how you guys draft. So I kind of want to ask you individually if you've seen each other play and you think you have a unique drafting style compared to the others here. Hafu, you want to start off? Anything specific you think you do a little bit more than others?
I haven't really watched their streams all that much.
Okay, that's
all. I don't think streamers can't really watch other streams as much because you stream yourself when you have time.
Right.
So.
I know. Traditionally, Hafu has had a pretty different style than most other players. I cast her at Lord of the Arena.
I didn't cast that as an arena deck though. That's
right. Okay.
Tournament deck.
That's true. That's true. I disagree with a few things, but I mean, you know how to play arena, so I'm not going to be like livid about it, right? Like, yeah.
Well, that was the anti-Ratsma deck.
Right. Right.
I mean, I just went for 2 like hyper low curve decks so that I don't miss any turns. I wouldn't draft that way in an actual arena because you're just gonna get wrecked by like.
Well, ADWCTA and I drafted on my stream like last week or something.
Right.
And I think we agree on almost everything because, we just go by Earth. We just go by Earth. Earth is just pretty good at evaluating cards. I think the only difference between ADWCTA and I is I'm more willing to pick the wildly wrong card than he is.
Yeah.
Like
for
Yeah, when I get to like if Hearth Arena gives like a 30-point difference, I'm very, very hesitant to go against Hearth Arena. I
But it's
probably
based off of you, so that makes sense.
it's
I mean,
trying to make it based
it's like
off of
asking
me.
yourself that question, man, and getting
Well,
the answer.
It's such an
I
identity
disagree
crisis.
with myself.
When
Exactly.
virtual ADWCTA pops up and says something, I'm like, ooh, I don't know if I want to.
Yeah, I mean it's right in some cases, but that's just the difference that I've seen. Like I was very willing to pick like a raid leader, and your argument was this card has a low score or something like that. And then yeah, we ended up picking like Mana Wraith over an Auchenai Soul Priest and Priest because
Wow.
That
we
worked
just
out
had,
really
we
well.
had like no 2-drops and we had like double Velens. So I'm like,
Mhm.
no, because if you Mana Wraith and Velens it, your opponent is screwed.
Yeah.
So I thought it was just the better pick. I think it was slightly better, but like if you look at the stats for Hearth Arena, Auchenai was like probably twice the score of Mana Wraith, right?
Yeah.
So
Because and that's partly because it's not going to value Mana Wraith right in the sense of our deck because it can't. It's not sophisticated enough to do the full Mana Wraith on both sides effect thing for like all your turn 2, turn 3 board state possibilities. You get something like a 3/2 and it'll do that perfectly. You get something like a Mana Wraith and it's like a little more wonky.
yeah.
I
In
haven't
terms
tried
of-
Hearth Arena. Ooh,
Well, go
sorry.
ahead. No, Hearth Arena. Go ahead.
Oh, I haven't tried Hearth Arena in a long time, but I tried it like a couple of patches ago because people just kept demanding it, and I think I
Wow.
disagreed with like two or three picks, and
That's good.
I
That's
kept
about how
track of
much
them.
I disagree with.
Standard.
Yeah, I think still, if you're really good, humans are better. Like what Krip said, you have reasoning for the picks that you make, but
Mhm.
for someone who doesn't really understand, have as much like game experience, Hearth Arena is a really good tool.
It's the standard argument.
Meanwhile,
Computers
ADWCTA
versus.
building Skynet, right?
Yeah, exactly. Right.
And
Humans still win.
Skynet's going to get even more scary at the end of the month, and the overlay comes out, and now people won't even have to like type in their cards. They can it'll just read off the
It'll
lock.
take over their lives.
Exactly. You won't even have to
Full
do
meta shit.
anything.
We're gonna test something. We're gonna just take one card and randomly move it from a 30 to a 90, and we're gonna see the whole meta change.
The overlay turns into a macro too, so it actually clicks the draft the draft pick for you too. That's going to be awesome. That comes out in a week, right? Something like that.
Whenever the end, I think it's actually the last day of the month.
Okay, all right.
So yeah, in about a week, I'm like in 7, 8, 9 days.
Yeah, that's going to be exciting. All right, spells. Let's talk to us, I guess, about how important spells are. I know that's one of the big differences, and just in terms of constructed in arena, is just how there's you kind of manage a little bit of a ratio between spells, and having too many is definitely a bad thing. Where there's definitely decks and constructed where spells are completely fine. Talk to us about that. ADWCTA, you want to start?
I never look at it as a spell to minion ratio. I know a lot of people think in terms of spell and ratio because that's like a different card type. I more think of it in terms of situational card and card I can put down, like a drop. So you have your curve, and then you have other cards that you can just play, and whether it's good or not, that's just how much value it's going to get, right? Like if you have, let's say, a card that triggers if you happen to have Rag in your hand. Well, that's basically like, it could have a ton of value if Rag is in your hand, but otherwise, that's just a whatever its stats are. So that's as much of a drop as a actual 3-drop in the sense of, well, I can't save it for value or anything. On the other hand, you have cards that are more situational, whether they're a minion or they're a spell, like something like a Spellbreaker. You'll lose a lot of your power if you don't hold it. You could still play it as a drop on turn 4, and it's just not that good of a minion. Or you have a spell like, let's say, a Frostbolt that you can kind of use basically whenever, right? There's almost always going to be a sort of decent Frostbolt target. So again, it's not that situational. And then you have cards that either are unplayable unless there is a target. So you need, if you have, well, like a Mark of Nature, right? That's a spell, but it's a really, really situational card. You don't want to just put it on a minion as you play it. You want to kind of put it when you have a minion already on the board, and then you can use it and trade positively to something. And that's the scale that I use. I want to make sure I don't have too many situational cards so that I can't play the game. And I want to make sure that I have some situational cards because that's when you get the real big value swings. That's why they're situational.
Yeah, I think you're totally right. I think the only detail that people might overlook is in the 2-drop slot. Like, if you have like 3 Frostbolts, 3 Flame Cannons, you think you might be okay with your like 1 Knife Juggler. You're really not, because, well, what if you go first and your opponent doesn't coin anything out? And then you're losing tempo every single turn from that point.
Yeah.
So you need to pay attention to like the spell thing just in your 2-drop slot, I believe. Other than that, you're right. It doesn't matter anymore. It used to. Once upon a time, people thought about that a few months into Hearthstone, a couple years back.
I think beyond that, like what Kripp said about the, like, it looks like you have a lot of 2s, but you might only have 1. There are a lot of, like, owl. Like, you can't even count that as a 2-drop, right? Like, you should count how many drops you actually have, like, playable 2s, right? Like, some people on Paladin even, like, have Argent Protector. That's not really a 2 you just slam on the board, right? That's not really a 2-drop. If you have, like, a 1 into a 2, you can keep it, but otherwise you probably want to toss it.
The number of times I've coined into Hero Power to Argent Protected, because otherwise I would
Really?
totally lose the board. That's a move I do,
that.
like, quite, like, not infrequently when I'm screwed, right?
I would just play the Argent Protector.
Like, just as a 2-2.
I would
Yeah,
Save the
just
coin.
straight. Okay. All right, well, let's start talking some cards here. Let me switch over here. And going to start off with the most powerful arena cards. Just what you guys, your opinion is. I'm taking a second here. I got all these golden cards I'm using for some of the ones we're going to discuss. So I wanted to find out what you guys think are the most powerful, overpowered arena cards right now. Krips, start off with you.
I'd like to start that there is only 1 overpowered arena card in the entire game.
All right, what is that?
It's Flame Strike.
Still?
Yeah.
Okay.
There are powerful cards, like there are the most powerful cards, but I think that's literally the only overpowered card in Arena.
Is that ever going to change? I mean, it's been overpowered since day 1, right?
Well, I very much disagree.
Okay.
I very much disagree as
All
well.
right, here we go.
Because we're talking about the situational ramp, right? Like, Flame Strike is actually, like, half situational. Now, the power that it gets is obviously disproportionate to how situational it is, right?
I want to. My full statement has to do
Okay.
considering its rarity. There we go.
Right, considering its rarity.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Sure.
But even considering its rarity, I think if you get something like Murloc Knight, for example, which I don't think is as good as Flame Strike, but if the value it provides is more consistent, I think it may start touching Flame Strike value. It just has more chances to actually be playable. And Flame Strike is a dead card in your hand, very infrequently, right? Because you want to play it on turn 7 if you can, or turn 9 and then ping. But sometimes it stays in your hand for a while, and that's a dead card. And that, like, without something like that, right? Kraken is unbelievably, like, off the world good. It's just it's a 3-for-1 card for 9 mana, and that's it. But you kind of have to wait till turn 9 to play it, which is its only balance.
Until then, it wins you jousts.
Until then, it wins you
Wins you
jousts, but
jousts.
only if it's
Wow.
not in your hand. So I think it's still, I wouldn't say it's like the most balanced cards. It's obviously one of the best cards in the arena, and it gets better the less you see it, right? Because now I get Flame Strikes off on people way more often than I used to, and I get Flame Strike myself more often than I used to, even though I see it less because I'm more willing to play into it. But I don't think it's as out of control as something like a Fire Elemental. That's always been my standard bearer for the most overpowered combo.
I agree.
Fire Elemental, you didn't tell me that.
I mean,
I was going with neutrals.
I thought
Oh
we were
my
going for new
God,
cards.
okay.
Yeah.
All right.
My bad. I
That's
mean,
okay.
Fire Ellie is like always been.
Yeah.
fucking-
Yeah. No, yeah.
Flame Strike's the only card where I'm like, I just can't play this way, and then that's it. Like other board clears, it's like you play around Consecrate by trading a specific way. You play around Lightning Storm by deducing if they have it or trading a certain way.
Yeah.
Flame Strike is just too much damage and it's too common. Those two things are not on any other card, and
Is it
board
still
clears are
too
just it.
common then? I
Yeah.
mean, didn't you just say you haven't played against it a single time yet?
No, I haven't drafted it a single time.
Oh, you
yet.
haven't drafted.
Yeah.
Okay.
I played against it like 12 times yesterday.
Yeah. Okay. I
12
thought
times
you
yesterday,
thought you
wow.
were
Yeah.
saying that other way around.
Hafu,
it's-
oh, go ahead.
They skewed the way Arena works, and you get class cards twice as often as they found out, right? So
I mean, it's always been like that. We have more evidence of it now than we used to.
okay,
Yeah.
all right.
And TGT cards are more likely to appear than both
Yeah.
cards, right?
But I think the very fact that we could talk about like playing around Flame Strike is not something that you can talk about with Fire Elemental.
Right.
It's just almost impossible to play around.
Cares?
You get a huge, you get like what, 6 mana to get like 8 mana's worth of a swing on mostly any board.
Yeah, but Flame Strike swing is always more than 8 mana, unless you're getting like sniped almost.
No, you put down 2 cards. Let's say they can both be a Flame Strike. It's about the same amount mana, 7, maybe 8.
It is, but like you talk about how like Murloc Knight is good, how like all these new cards you just get Flame Strike. Like
Yeah,
we're having to play a slow tempo game right now. Like it's tempo, but it's not GVG tempo. So Flame Strike just kills everything. And anything it doesn't kill, well, just have removal in the mage deck.
Just ping it next turn.
Yeah. I think it's literally the only card that you're forced to play around in too many situations.
I agree with that.
I do think it is
a
the most
giant
played around.
info.
Yeah.
All right, any other candidates besides? I mean,
Best
Flames.
neutral. Is
Fire
Kraken
Elemental.
common? I don't even know.
Yep.
the word.
Kraken. Yeah,
Yeah,
Kraken
Kraken's
is common.
common.
I think I would put Kraken up there. It's
Let's pick
definitely
Kraken up here. Let's
Yeah.
talk about Kraken a little bit here. Here we go.
Well, it's like a Fire Elemental, except it's bigger.
It's a
So-
Fire Elemental on steroids.
Big brother. Big brother. Yeah, exactly.
And if you can't answer to a 9/7,
Yeah.
I mean, this card was made for Arena, right? I mean, it's not used at all in Constructed, so it.
I use it in Construct.
Do you?
My free account. It's
Your
not
free-
bad though. Like,
yeah, it's not bad.
That's not bad
really
for
good.
sure. Yeah, but it's just not used in any top tier
Right.
kind of Constructed decks.
I had 2 decks in a row with Deathwing, and my Deathwing got countered twice by Northsea Kraken because I played it. My opponent had like 20 life, and then Kraken's like basically the only card that trades 1-for-1 and is removal.
Huh. That's true.
Huh. Yeah, I never thought of it like that.
Yeah.
Like that's how good it is. It counters Deathwing.
Counters.
Yeah,
Counters.
counters. After
I
taking
lost
some
both
damage.
those games. Like just drew crap, and he had like 5 cards both games. So-
Yeah, because you're out of cards after you Deathwing.
Yeah.
How many Krakens is bad? Is there a
5.
number? 5? 5?
Oh,
5? 5,
Five's not
9?
good.
It's
Probably
relative
not gonna
to
win.
What about
the
4?
other- No. You just don't want more than like 4 or 5 big creatures. This is
Yeah.
a
Okay.
really big creature. So like if you have like 4 of these, you want like none of the 7s or 8s, maybe
I would
even
just
none
take
6s.
two of these.
Yeah, 4
I
sounds
don't
like a
think I would
lot
take
too.
3. You would take the third Kraken?
The third Kraken is not awful.
Yeah.
Like, how many mind controls would you take? I think that's a good, like...
1.
1. Yeah,
You guys don't
me
take-
too.
I'll take 2 mind controls. And I would take 3 Krakens easily over 2 mind controls. So the 4th Kraken is kind of like...
Wait,
it's a
he's
little
only
more...
talking about dead cards? Dead cards in your
Yeah.
hand. Mind control's not always good. Kraken is always good, which is a little bit
Yeah.
different. But
No,
Mhm.
that's
That's
right.
I
that's
take
why I
double
said
the amount of
2 on
Krakens I
Kraken,
take mind
not
controls.
2 on mind control.
Yeah, I go more for
Okay.
Kraken. But yeah, you're right. Like, mind control's more situational, right? Your opponent actually has to play a big thing for you to be able to use it. Kraken, you can play pretty much whenever.
Apparently you're not supposed to overdose on crack. Oh man. Thanks, chat. Whoa.
Yeah, thanks for that advice. All right, most surprising powerful card. The surprise versus power ratio is high on the surprising side. Any card that the chat or just viewers might not realize are super powerful.
I have to go back to the list I sent you because I don't know. Maybe you could help us out here. What do we tell you?
All right, you
earlier,
sent
Chi?
me. You sent me Muster. Oh, you sent me Muster. I mean, everybody knows Muster, I guess. And Kraken. Okay. Pilot Shredder.
Yep, it's a pretty good card.
Coda Rider. I think
Coda
it's
Rider,
really
that's true.
undervalued from a lot of people. I
It
thought
is-
it was insane.
It is an epic though, so it's not really that relevant. It's like saying, there's a few other epic cards that are really good. That one's really, really good if you're winning and you play like a tempo game most of the time. So yeah, it's insane when you're winning.
Yeah. I'll say this. So, Mistress of Pain, I think, is my pick.
Wow.
The
Okay.
most undervalued cards in the arena, because most people think it's not that good. And really, I would say it's better than most 2-drops, because health is so important, so important to the Warlock, and 2-drops are so important to the Warlock because of that hero power, that it gets a lot more value than what it does seems like it would get. Because if it just gets 2 health back, you're essentially getting 1 more card in the late game, when tempo doesn't matter anymore and you're tapping anyway, and health
But
is your
if
only
you're
concern.
taking damage. Let's say a 3/2 kills your 1/4 with a ping or whatever. Like
But
that
then the
3
anti-
damage is more
that's
than what
good.
you're taking. That's good.
That's good though, because they anti-tempo themselves to be able to ping your thing down, right? To be able to ping the Mistress of Pain down.
But you still have to deal with the 3/1.
Yeah, sure. So like, let's say,
It's very situational. Like, this is suddenly like very
so
specific.
let's say you point
But,
out a 2-drop, then you play Mistress of Pain, then you play a 3-drop. They skip their turn 1, then they play the 2/3/2, and then they use turn 3 to ping. Well, you're still kind of up on the board, right? You've lost a card, right? But you're up on the board, and you're going to get that card back because you've just you're a Warlock. Cards are not terribly important to you in the beginning, especially little cards like 2-drops and 3-drops.
Well, you're mentioning how earlier you were struggling with like Warlock and Arena. Do you think there might be a connection between that and the frequency of Mistress of Pain in your deck?
My Warlock has
Whoa.
gone up by like 1 win per run since I
Wait,
started
wait.
valuing Mistress of Pain properly.
That's a
We
Okay.
that's a
co-opted.
lot.
We co-opted on Warlock, and we did quite well.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know. I think Healbot is pretty undervalued. It's like I
Oh.
think when that card first came out, people were like, "Wow, this is crap," but it's actually like a surprise in Arena. Like I've definitely lost to it when they're like, "What the fuck? They top deck Healbot. They're 2 out that lethal next turn." And for Warlock especially, like Warlock and Rogue, where you can trade your health for like board control, it's pretty powerful.
Let's see, on here, let's see, ADWCTA's list has Zombie Chow and Dark Iron Dwarf too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Zombie Chow is crazy.
Tried and true, those two.
Crazy boys. It's like, people have the dream deck, but they don't have 1-drops, and then Zombie Chow just ruins that.
It's true.
That's true. All right,
Oh my god, I got 3 knife jugglers. They're gonna be so amazing. And then you go second into a Zombie Chow. It's just like, yeah. And it gets worse than that. So,
yeah. All right, most impactful TGT card. Hafu, you want to start?
Kraken.
yeah.
Oh, well, okay,
Different
that's
ones.
true. Different
Different
ones,
ones.
not Kraken.
Not Kraken, not Murloc Knight.
Not Coda Rider. That's my list.
Mookless Champion.
See,
I hate
It's
that
good
card.
on. It's good on.
Crip,
Shaman and
Crip has a lot
Paladin.
more interesting ones here. He's got Seal of Champions.
Yeah, I think Steel
Yeah, no,
Champions
that's true.
is better than Kings. And that's saying a lot. I don't know. That's all I need to say, I think.
I agree with that as well.
Yeah.
Seal of Champions.
It's-
I mean,
it
Paladin's
has-
crazy.
Yeah,
They
it
didn't
has a
need
huge
Seal of
frequency.
Champions.
It's common, it's a class card, and it's a TGT card. You're just going to get tons of these, and that helps Paladin a lot.
I think usually when I face Paladin, what I get screwed over the most isn't like a sword or a consecration. It's a Blessing of Kings, and now that's happening a lot more often. So I'm shifting the way I'm playing around things, and I'm actually playing around that a lot more than I'm playing around swords. And I'm almost never playing around consecration now because if they consecrate
Exactly.
me, you just refill the board.
Yeah.
Right.
All right, how about Cavalder Raider?
Yeah, that's my list again.
Yep,
I think
that's
that card
yours.
is like a bit. I think you should maybe look at the stats. I think it's underrated on Hearth Arena. It feels like every time they play it as a 6/6, and it's like I either win that turn or like overcommit to kill this card. It just feels that situation comes up so frequently, and I think the card is a lot better than it seems.
Yeah, we haven't. So right now, it's actually kind of where the stats were, and it's where we had initially rated it. But we also don't have like it takes a while to gather a sizable sample size from like good players, right? From people who have high win rates. So right now, we've been like very hesitantly looking at those stats because they're very low sample size, and when you have low sample size, these numbers go all over the place, right? So it may be the case that good players are better, and it's one of those cards, right, where you think good players will be better with it than average players because you have to like find the right spot to put it down. You have to know how the hero power on your next couple of turns, because you kind of have to hero power after you play that card, how it affects your curve. There's a lot of considerations going in there, and it works differently for each class because it's a hero power card.
Yeah. Worse than Warrior.
People
Yeah.
people are comparing it to Floating Watcher, but that's not exactly true because the Floating Watcher generates its tempo from a 0 tempo hero power.
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
a priest is marginally winning, then they play this, they kill your stuff and heal their creature. You just lost that game. Like it's over.
Yeah.
And like it's better in a mage, of course, because you can finish off killing something with a ping, so you get the 1 damage out of tempo as well. And it's more than a 6/6 at that point. It's like a 6/6 that will probably kill you next turn. So I think it's really, really undervalued.
All right, next up, Argent Horse Rider. That's from
Oh,
Crip's
yeah.
list too.
And that's a good one. That's almost like a surprising one.
Yeah.
Is this what we're on right now?
Yeah, that's a
No,
good
no, we
job,
passed
Crit.
Oh, damn.
Oh, damn.
It is
talking about
quite good.
Yeah.
I mean, I thought it was gonna be good. I didn't think it was gonna be great, and it is great, I would say, because it just takes out 2 drops, so it plays well on curve, and it leaves a body. It's like a Harvest Golem that you charge. It's nice.
Yeah, I thought it was going to be very average, and it turns out that it's great. And it is, along with Murloc Knight, like the highest things we've moved on Hearth Arena's on the tier list so far. And on our arena focused podcast, giving a plug to my podcast, The Light Forge, which we had Hafu on a couple weeks ago after the Lord of the Arena thing. But this last week we talked about Argent Horse Rider for a large chunk, and like just how wrong I was about Argent Horse Rider.
Wow. Whole episode on how wrong you were about
It was
that.
a good like 10 minutes of the episode about just how I
Wow.
screwed up the valuation. And I came to the conclusion that I was very focused on the fact that, one, both parts of the body, it's basically 2 bodies, right? And the first body kind of hits in and gets like a Holy Smite effect, and the second body can be pinged off. And I was like, oh, that's really bad. You have a 2/1 thing that can be pinged off. That's not like a 1/1 that can be pinged off. It like you actually trade evenly in tempo with your opponent's hero power if they're mage, if they're rogue, and if they're druid, and that's just not good. And if you look at it, that's 3 mana for the effect of a Holy Smite and the effect of a Murloc Raider. That's 2 mana, but you're paying 3 mana for it, and you're like kind of getting a card back. So it doesn't feel like when you add it all up, just in the big picture of card design, it doesn't seem like it's that good. But in the more micro sense of when you play it and how you use it, it gets rid of problems because it deals 2 damage immediately, and it's not even that bad as a 3-drop. I thought it was going to be a really awful thing to just play on an empty board on turn 3. As it turns out, maybe it's not so good on an empty board, but you often have a 2/3 against your opponent's 2/3 or something like that, and you can just use it to help yourself trade up and leave another annoying body on the board. And it actually works quite well on turn 3 very often.
Yeah, I think it's actually much simpler than all that. I think it's just half an Argent Commander, which
Yeah.
has twice the effectiveness of buffs.
Yeah,
But you can't ping the Argent Commander.
but it's 6
And it
mana.
also costs 6 mana though, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
All right.
OP.
OP, exactly. All right, well, let's talk about cards that you'd like to see a rarity change on, and why. I mean, some of those cards obviously are some that we probably talked about earlier, just because that was obviously an issue pertaining to Flame Strike and Fire Elemental and things like that. But what are some other cards?
Maybe like removal should be classed into. I don't know. In a perfect world, every class would have like equal amounts of removal, because the top classes are Mage, Paladin, and Rogue, right? Mage and Rogue have cheap removal, and there's a lot of it. And Paladin has stickiness, and actually decent removal as well. Like if you look at the weapons and the consecrates and the quality and the alder, blah 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 blah. I think just like it's changing some of the rarities of AoEs and just like the flame cannons, the frost bolts, flame strike, making that all rare would be great.
It's true. Flame Cannon actually feels the most OP.
Yes.
Like when GVG, I think it's a GVG card. When GVG came out, it's like, oh, 2-drop Flame Cannon.
Yeah.
But like these days, I just play my 2-drop and I wait for like the 3 or the week 4 to like brutally wreck them in tempo.
Yeah.
And they never. People haven't picked up on that. They just think I'm gonna play a piece of garbage, and if it doesn't get Flame Cannon, I'm gonna play my good 3-drop. But it's just you just save it and you just wreck them. So yeah, the card is really broken. That's true. I missed that. I think that is a pretty OP card. It might
Flame Cannon.
require a rarity change.
Yeah, because it's 2 mana, 4 damage, and its downside is that it's random. And I want as many random cards up in rarity as absolutely possible. Because if you get the situation where it's not random, right? You use it, they only have 1 minion, but now it's overpowered. So in either way, it's causing some kind of a swing that you want to kind of minimize in the game as much as possible.
You don't like jousting?
Ja-
Oh my god, don't even get... I still don't know if I've ever won a single joust where I'm the person initiating the joust in all of TGT. I'm
Draft
sure I
higher,
have,
man.
but I don't remember.
Draft higher.
Like, we don't even have any of the jousting cards in here.
because we
It's a-
hate him so much. We just try to pretend.
They're
As
Yeah,
good
they're
a
really
reason.
bad.
if you win the joust.
Yeah,
Are you gonna
exactly.
win the joust? How good at
Well, that's the
Hearthstone are you?
All right, let's throw a bolster on there. I'm sure
Yeah,
a lot
bolster,
of us
here we
have
go.
Yeah, let's go. Let's
Exactly.
get this going here.
Yeah.
Bolster. Bam.
I
Why,
think
Blizzard?
Bolster
Why?
Should
Why?
get a higher rarity, and so it can be seamless.
Should be legendary.
should be legendary.
First legendary spell.
Yeah. I mean, Hunter's got 2. Why not?
Yeah. Okay. Hafu, what do you think of this card?
It's a warrior card.
Yeah.
I
she doesn't even
haven't-
know what card it is.
Type it into your internet browser and find out what the card.
It's a warrior card.
I
Yeah.
actually had to look at the stream because I haven't played against it a single time, and I had the option to draft it, but I had one taunt, so I was like, this is a
Really?
shitty Mark of the Wild. Yeah.
The last
So-
time I drafted Warrior, I literally had 6 options to draft this card,
Mm-hmm.
which
Well,
has to
it's
do
just
why
sample
it should have a
size.
rarity change.
Together, because we definitely
Oh,
saw
say-
like 5 or 6 of those.
No, that was after that run. I
Wait,
believe.
wait, so you want a rarity change so you don't have to even deal with this card?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah,
I
because
see.
it's screwing over
Cards that are crap or combo centered should not be common because it ruins the class in arena.
Yep.
Okay, that's interesting.
Yep.
All right, revenge.
Yeah, I actually
Alright.
have used Bolster a couple times in Arena because we did a worst pick draft. And so we obviously picked Bolster a lot. So I saw the animation. I played around with the card. I got it to trigger on... me and Merps got it to trigger on Target Dummy once. And that felt really good. And lost 0-3.
Nice.
All right. Well, I put Revenge up there because it hasn't happened frequently, but I've been like totally wrecked by this card when like warriors intentionally take damage with weapons and then just like clear me. It's just like a really cool card. And I think the reason people don't try it is 1, they just don't pick warrior, and 2, when they pick warrior, they're like very conservative with what they choose. So I think if Revenge was more common, it'd have a pretty big effect on Warriors Arena because they're really lacking board clears, and Brawl doesn't cut it in Arena.
I have taken Revenge a few times. I think if it were just like enemy minions, maybe a little bit better, more playable, and it maybe
Yeah,
would
of
help
course.
Warrior a lot more. Like, but it's not like control. It's not constructed where you want to always hurt your minions for the battle. Like you don't have the crazy combos.
No patron war, right?
Yeah, we
Yeah.
don't have the patron. We don't have the acolytes. I mean, it's a lot
Well,
harder to get.
You
good
try to
balance.
use it for 3. When you use it for 3, you like win the game though, don't you?
Because no one plays around it. So they
This
could
is
very well
Yeah.
set up like a
Yeah.
full
They
board.
just don't play around it.
Yeah. They're like, you're Warrior. What are you
Right.
going to do to this? Oh, Revenge, right.
Yeah, that card exists. Damn, I guess I'll lose.
It's like
I've lost
the
a
number-
double Mortal Strike before.
Right, exactly, right? The number of times that you've won because they hit you without finishing you off
Yeah.
and put you in range of your extra damage Mortal Strike. You emote, I'm sorry, and then you win the game.
Sorry, speaking of board clear, Elemental Destruction. It's another
That's
one
my card too.
Yeah, it's another one of yours.
It
That
just
was
is-
Lava Shock is dirty. Just
This
disgusting.
is
Dirty.
just such
Dirty.
a cool card. It's such a cool card. Like, you have to be losing so much, which is so traditional of Shaman Arena,
Yes.
Yeah.
and it's
Especially
so
with
effective.
Paladins.
Yeah, but then you start losing right after you play it again, right?
Oh no, you play it. It's only 3
Lava
mana. You you put all your
Oh,
other
Lava
stuff
Shock,
on
yeah,
the
yeah,
board,
Lava
and then
Shock.
you're on the board, and then you use a Lava Shock.
It's still only wait. Okay, true.
No, you don't need Lava Shock.
Yeah,
It's
you don't
just
really
a
need
good
Lava
card.
You
Yeah.
don't need Lava Shock. Well, you'd like Lava Shock.
Like, this card is broken, and then let's think about the fact that Flame Strike exists, okay? Then we'll just go back to that point. And it's a common, by the way. We can check. We verified this.
Yes.
The mana costs are a little bit different. Lava Shock does activate it, and
Yeah, but
I mean, Shaman do have a lot of cheap, really cheap spells, right? Like the Fork Lightnings, the Lightning Bolts, Rock Bite, Hex.
I kind of dispute that, because if you Elemental Destruction on 3, you actually lose.
Oh yeah,
because
yeah,
you
yeah.
skip your
Oh,
4th turn.
right, right.
So it is a late game card. It is like a 7-drop anyway, because you play this, then you play like a Yeti. That's how you win.
Right.
And if you play as a mage, when you Flame Strike, you usually have about a Yeti on the board. So no, I think it's basically the same.
That's not a fair example. You usually have a Yeti on the board, so it's the same thing. Like, You can
We
play
start
one
off
trick
with the
from a
premise
losing.
that Mage is so good that they'll have a Yeti on the board before this turn comes, and
have-
then we
you have,
end
like,
with
a
and it's still as
creature.
good.
That's what usually survives at that stage. When you flame strike, you usually don't flame strike when you have nothing. You usually flame strike when you have like something. And
The end
Big
result
game.
is similar. Is basically what
Yeah.
you're saying. Yeah. All right. Next up, mulch.
oh, my card.
Yeah.
These guys
We're
not
just
submit?
Well, no,
Yeah,
we're
we
just
did.
going through
I
here. We're
did.
just going in order.
Okay.
Okay. We're going through crypts first, and then we'll go through.
I really like mulch. I've somehow drafted mulch twice now, and it just feels really good. I just mulch like a 6-drop, and then they only have like 4 6-drops in their deck, so they're like, that's one less. You win out on tempo. It's basically a sap. You basically are likely to give them a 2-drop or a 3-drop, which is worthless at that stage in the game. And even if you give them a late game card, like 2/3 of late game cards are complete garbage that they're going to play the rest of their hand before it anyway.
I mean,
Yeah,
I
and
love
it's
mulch.
so unexpected.
But it's an epic, like you said, so a little bit.
Needs to be like a
less so.
common. Yep, let's go
It
Blizzard.
needs to
I
be
think Druid's already
common.
fine. Do you think Druid's?
Wow.
I think Druid's like mid.
Druid's
Mid-range.
fine, but it feels stupid to lose to like big cards you can't remove.
It does.
Yeah, I like
That's
that
always
about
good.
Druid though. I think it's one of their like necessary weaknesses. I don't want mulch to be a lower rarity. I think it's good kind of where it is. I agree that it's super powerful, just because of the exact reasons that you said. But I like the flavor. I'm more into keeping the classes with their weaknesses. I think that's what defines classes. It's how you play around classes.
Naturalize.
No one-
Hey.
Right, exactly. So you
I
have a
naturalized it.
naturalize.
It's not bad.
It's an expectation buster, right? If they naturalize your stuff, you're not prepared for it. And if they set it up well and you don't have the answers, you just lose. And I want less of those cards, not more of those cards in the arena.
I drafted
So-
that in Lord of the Arena.
Which one? Mulch or
Naturalize.
Naturalize?
No,
Oh,
naturalize.
naturalize. All right.
I wish I got mulch.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, now we're gonna go to ADWCTA's first. Anoyotron.
We should
Oh,
change
yeah.
the title of these aren't the most powerful
Oh, yeah,
cards.
these aren't the most
These are
powerful. My bad.
rarity change
Yes,
cards.
you're right. You're right. You're right. Here we go.
Yeah, so these are all rarity
Good
changes.
catch.
I hate Anoyotron. I was talking about expectation busters. I hate those because they swing the game, you can't prepare for them, and if it's like a neutral common, you really aren't going to ever play around the possibility your opponent will drop an Anoyotron. And I don't mind it as much if they drop it on turn 2, but if they're dropping it on turn like 7 with like some other cards, or if they already have a board, you have to hit it twice, especially if you don't have a ping. It additionally screws over classes without that good hero power that puts like a 1/1 on the board, or that hits something for 1 damage, and it just stops you from being able to attack things. And it stops you twice for only 2 mana. So it forces your opponent's initiative. It forcibly gives your opponent the initiative back on the board as a neutral card for only 2 mana. And if you have like a big minion on the board, it completely screws you over, and you're just going to be dead because your opponent's going to go face. And that's way too many things that it's doing for a common card for 2 mana, I think.
I haven't lost
Yeah.
them that way too many times. I don't know. Does that really
That's
happen
what,
that much?
that's what I said as well.
I
as
lose
people
like that
don't
all the
listen to me.
time.
I don't
Must be
lose
the
to
way
me.
I play.
I actually have been noticing it more once you pointed it out, because you told me this on your podcast at Lightforge a couple weeks ago, and I have noticed that it has been annoying, but not to the point where like it's deal 3 damage, right? Like find 2 ways to do it, like 1 damage and then 2 damage, and sometimes you are running 8 damage into it, but it usually doesn't lose you the game because your stuff isn't dying either. It's not like the 1/2 is like killing your 5/5, right? Like it's not killing a Yeti. It's just damage. Like boom, it's a 4/4 now. Oh no.
I mean, the only argument that I see is just like way broken compared to Silverback Patriarch. Like
Poor
on that
Silverback,
note,
man.
this should be like an epic, right?
Yes, please make it an epic. That would make me so happy.
All right.
Would you
Next.
play a Noyatron? I mean, would you play a 1/4 taunt, like vanilla taunt? Would you draft that?
What do you mean, like
For- sorry,
Silverback
a two,
Patriarch?
yeah, but a 2-drop. A 2-drop
Oh,
Silverback Patriarch.
yeah,
Would you
yeah.
still play it?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
I don't
okay.
know.
Just because taunts are pretty rare to get, so it seems okay.
Like, I wouldn't be happy with it, but...
But it would still be bad.
Average-ish.
Silverback is still bad at a 2-drop, yeah?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's
That's
still
pretty
pretty bad.
sad.
That's pretty-
I
that's
think
very
that's pretty
sad.
sad. Yeah.
That's very sad. All right. Next up, Stone Skin Gargoyle.
Hey,
Oh.
Patriarch stats. What's up?
Exactly. 1/4, 3. But this one heals itself.
Whoa!
Every turn.
Okay,
Look
I just
out.
don't understand that from, like, a design perspective, right? Normally, common cards are cards that are pretty normal. This is a weird card. Let's ignore the fact of how bad this card is. It's so weird. No card does it. You have to set it up. It's really combo-y. Like, what was Blizzard thinking making this one a common? It has no, like, just ignoring the fact that it's an unplayable card in the arena, and I think it's actually the lowest common neutral in Hearth Arena, which is why I brought it, which is why I sent that to you. I was just going on off of our own tier list.
It's like a total troll pick is what this was.
Yeah, like, I don't know.
Think of the king's value. Oh my god.
Yeah, that's what
It's happened
epic
a
cards
few
are for.
times.
I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
It's happened a few times
Would you
now.
play it if it was a 1/5? Just curious. Sorry, I keep asking
No.
questions, but
I
1/6.
mean, maybe I would play it. Like, there are ways to make it
1/6
better,
keep
but it
going.
should never be
Oh,
common.
1/6 would be crazy.
1/6
Yeah.
would be good.
But a 1/5's bad.
Pretty bad.
Okay, that's interesting. Like,
It has
I
a tipping
understand.
point. Like
Yeah, it does.
the effect makes every health point super relevant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I think
Yeah.
you're absolutely right. Like cards like the 2/6, the 2/6s are interesting.
Oh. Mm-hmm.
I think one thing, like the design behind it being a common has to do with, like they just made like Nax Ramus, half the cards are legendary or epic. So I mean, I don't know.
Yeah.
So
I mean, they had to
like,
have
ran out
some
of
common
space.
cards, right? Yeah, it was the
Okay.
first expansion, so that's kind of in line with that. Yeah, it sucks. We've all lost like once to this though, so it feels bad to even
Yeah.
look at it.
All right, Imp Gang Boss. That's the next one.
It's
Oh, yeah.
crazy.
It's just a little too good.
It's so good.
Should be
But
rare.
Blizzard put the perfect counter, Silent Night.
It's true.
Or no, Holy Night.
Wait, what?
No,
Yeah,
Holy
Holy
Night.
Night.
Oh,
they
I
only-
was like, how is
yeah,
that
Silent Night's
a
not
counter?
wouldn't even barely
Silent
damage
Night's
this
That's
thing.
terrible.
Exactly.
Yeah. It should be or at least a rare.
Yeah, it should be a rare.
Yeah.
It feels like an outdoor to me.
Outdoor. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Next up is a Shaman card, the Draenei Totem Carver.
Oh yeah. Between that and the Thunderbolt Balin, one of them should be common. Just because it's Shaman, they have totem problems. Blizzard's trying to push a totem agenda. Why not just make more totems? I mean, I know why not, right? The why not is because they already made 2 totems common in TGT, and so they're kind of like Krip was saying, they're running out of space in this expansion to make more common cards. For in this case for the Shaman. But if they were able to just shift rarities, this will make Shaman like a lot better, a lot more consistent. And one of Shaman's problems is the RNG totems. You make totems have more diverse uses. It'll just make everything kind of better. Not just more powerful, but more flavorful, more fun, less frustrating.
Doesn't Shaman feel like you have to be winning to win? Like
Yeah.
once
Yeah.
you lose board control, you're like, well, I'm gonna totem for 2 mana. It's a 0/2. You're gonna kill it for free every turn.
It's more damage than
It's
the
okay
warrior.
compromise
hero.
though. Like 4/4 for 4 is not terrible in Arena. I kind of agree with ADWCTA, but I also want to add that stupid card, the 3/2, I don't know what it's called.
Whirling.
The totem, the totemic one. Or-
Tuskar Totemic.
Yeah,
Tuskar
yeah.
Totemic.
Oh, that card is so stupid. It feels
Yeah,
so
I don't-
bad when it spawns a totem golem. It's like, okay, I guess I'll lose the game because I won out of 8. That's nice.
And then when you play it, it spawns a normal totem.
I don't think I've ever gotten totem golem.
Yeah, I haven't.
I got it once. I was
I
winning
get it a
anyway.
lot actually when I play that card.
Yeah.
But
I
this-
get a Flame Tongue a lot.
Yeah, I guess.
Oh,
That's
that's a
a
good
nice one.
Yeah.
And you should think about positioning when you play it. 'Cause, like,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
have
that's
already.
right.
It's not nice when you like play it on curve though.
Yeah.
Right.
It's hard to play it on Grr,
Ice
especially if you have like
Ranger.
if you have like Totem Golem and things like that. Yeah, this one over the the other one, the Thunder Bluff, I think should be probably common. This one in common would make a lot of sense.
Wait, the 3/6 that buffs your totems? I think that
Yeah.
card's insane.
Yeah, that definitely
Yeah,
shouldn't
I
be
mean, it'll
common.
be
that
a-
one.
Oh,
yeah.
it shouldn't be a
Yeah,
common.
Yeah, this
oh,
one
okay,
I think
okay,
is
cool.
over
Yeah.
the other one.
Thunderbolt
That
Valiant.
one's
Yeah.
crazy.
That one's
That's
really
like
Thunderbolt Valiant has like a neutral counterpart too, right? It's a Frostwolf Warlord with better stats, but has a totem qualifier. So it's not even that far off of how Blizzard wants the commons and the rarities to go.
Yeah.
I actually just play that card on turn 5 almost every time I have it.
I mean, it's a
Really?
3/6. It's a
Yeah,
affinity
it
bird.
won't die.
Like, it's
It
fine.
does-
No, it almost never dies, and then you
Right.
have like these totems with attack, and then like just gets out of control immediately.
We have 6 mana to play with, right?
Right.
That's definitely great. All right, last one for. Actually, I think this is the last one because I'm not sure you had any
Right.
for me, Hafu. ADWCTA, Master of Disguise.
Okay, this one for the flavor. I think it's one of those rogue mechanics that goes a little, I think, underused by Blizzard and rogues stealth. I like stealth as a mechanic, and this way it gets every card stealth, potentially. And the best part is it adds this new dimension that no other card does, which is it keeps its stealth forever, potentially.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Oh my
Like-
god, Cult Masters under that thing.
Yes.
Ugh.
So it really adds a whole new dimension to the rogue play. I can see why they made it rare. This aspect of it does make it a little more of like a higher skill card, but it's also so flavorful. It's a flavor the rogue doesn't otherwise have.
Or
with-
need.
Isn't it? Yeah. Isn't it powerful
Rogues are
enough
so
already?
strong. Yeah.
But this card isn't like a brokenly powerful card, right? It's just like an above average card.
It has some situations where it's really strong though. It doesn't happen that frequently because people just don't pick the card, but the card is like outrageous with flesh-eating ghoul. It's outrageous with some like a bit more snowball cards, like Inspire Mechanics. You can get out of control.
Yeah.
Questing Advantage. Yeah. All those kind of cards.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So I don't know.
Combos are
I
harder,
think
right?
what's that?
Like combos are a bit harder to pull off in Arena.
Right. So it's hard to say, but there's some chance it'll like break the game a little bit.
Yeah.
The 4/4 body's not terrible either, actually.
Yeah,
for this
exactly.
card.
It's not bad.
Yeah. All right, guys. Well, I think that's going to conclude the card discussion, and we're going to take a quick break, and then we'll go to our co-op draft that we'll have with these three guys. So stay tuned. We'll be right back.